how. It's right straight up.
Perfect.
This meeting, the Board of Trustees, is called to order at 6:01 p.m. We have a quorum with Carlos Bustillos, Richard Cudier, Cruz Ochoa, Catherine Luceto, Mike Rosales, and myself, Connie Woodruff. Sotero Ramirez is unable to attend. Trustee Rosales, will you please lead us in a pledge of allegiance and a moment of silence? You know what, I need to revise that. Mr. Cudier will be late. I'm sorry.
I pledge allegiance
To the flag of the United States of America and to the republic. Yeah. I see Mr. Cudier coming in the door, so he's here now. Do you understand what this means? Number 2 will be reviewed last. Did we kind of skip over something? Yeah.
I think we're going to go to
Okay.
go over the agenda.
So I just say number 2 will be reviewed.
For agenda item 2.
Okay. All right, so we'll continue on with our board workshop, and agenda item number 2 will be reviewed last. Dr. Delatorre, do you have any reports this evening?
Yes, good evening, Madam Chair Woodruff, members of the board, guests. This evening we've got a brief summary attempt to capture Governor Greg Abbott's safety plan released in May of 2018 with some specific suggestions, and then on the lower part of the slide you'll find what we currently do in this school district. So if there aren't any questions, we'll get started. Strategy 1, and you can see down below where it says Strategy 1, the governor is proposing to increase the presence of law enforcement and or security forces at school plants or at campuses. By that, he suggested that schools and school districts may want to consider hiring additional law enforcement officers, the sworn peace officers, and or security personnel, or a combination of both. In response to the public's response to having teachers armed, he toned down his rhetoric and suggested that, much like they do on airlines, that maybe schools would consider marshals on campus as a way to have additional armed personnel on campuses. He did suggest that we work closely with law enforcement to increase and include school plants as part of their routine patrols. And then the last is create inviting areas or spaces at schools to allow officers to take breaks, have lunch, and enter reports, provide them computers, provide them access to the internet, that type of thing. We're certainly open to 3 of the 4. We're not super excited about having marshals or armed marshals on campus. The issue relative to law enforcement is, of course, that sworn peace officers are more expensive than our security personnel. And then the last one is we'll work with principals this summer and other personnel to see whether or not we can dedicate a space at each and every one of our schools so that if a law enforcement officer on patrol wants to stop, use the restroom, have lunch, enter reports, file reports, that type of thing, we would make an area or a space available to them. What we currently have in this school district is we have one El Paso Police Department school-based law enforcement officer in each of the 7 learning communities, and we have 2 at Cesar Chavez Academy. In aggregate, there are 84 YISD security personnel throughout the district, and this district made a large investment some time ago on surveillance cameras, and then more recently, with the help and the support of this board, we passed a bond that allowed safety vestibules at each and every one of the schools that require visitors be allowed into the building once they can determine their identity. His second, or strategy 2, increase mental health first aid training for staff. Coordinate with mental health service agencies, train teachers and staff on mental health first aid. At present, there are 102 school counselors in the school district, 19 social workers, many of them through the Communities in Schools program. As you know, we have 1 registered nurse at every school, additional LVNs for our special ed units. This year, we hired a child psychiatrist. She works out of the Comprehensive Care Center. We believe we have a very strong or sound partnership with the El Paso Child Guidance Center. As you also know, we introduced the Random Act of Kindness curriculum, or Kindness in the Classroom curriculum this year. We have a Service Excellence Initiative in place. We'll be starting year 2 of that. And then we're looking at what implementing a mental health first aid training to all staff would look like in 2018-19. His third strategy, deploy social media monitoring system. In other words, dedicate staff to monitor social media sites and identify potential clues and or threats to individuals and or schools. We currently rely probably heavily on students as our agents of social change. They're our primary resource when there's something that is inappropriate or troubling on a social media site. Looking to see if we can establish a school community partnership or coalition. Looking at the possibility of the anonymous alert system being part of that. We just, I think, purchased and introduced that this year. And we've had quite a bit of traffic on that system. Looking at a Crime Stoppers partnership beginning in 2018, district-wide. And then teachers and students need training on how to become situationally aware. In other words, how to be vigilant and pick up on cues, clues, artifacts, conversations, situations that seem out of the ordinary. His last strategy has to do with being prepared and responsive. And I would suggest that Mr. O'Neill, working with the District Crisis Management Response Team, is very well trained. It may have been, 2 years ago, Pat, that you all traveled to the East Coast for training?
Yes, sir. We went to the National Emergency Management Institute in Maryland. We took a group of employees with us, and we went and spent a week there learning strategies, how to develop an EOP.
So we're kind of ahead of the curve on that. They hold quarterly district safety committee meetings, campus safety committee meetings. There's annual safety training for all employees. There must be and is an emergency operation plan at all schools, all campuses. Mr. O'Neill and his team insist on safety drills to prepare students and staff so it isn't out of the ordinary when they go into a drill, lockdowns, modified lockdowns, things like that. We are having an active shooter exercise and training later this month on June 26th. It involves the FBI, it involves the El Paso Police Department, the Sheriff's Department. All of the local law enforcement agencies are going to do a mock lone shooter scenario at Ysleta High School on the 26th. And we will have representatives there from all campuses so that they can observe and personally experience what that looks like and feels like when law enforcement mobilizes around a school in the district. We have our annual comprehensive safety and security audit every 3 years. And then, of course, we refer back to the entry and visitor management system. So let's go back to the beginning and kind of just break it down with you and see whether or not you have any thoughts or any questions relative to what the governor's recommending and what the district is currently doing, and whether or not we may have missed something, or whether or not the board has an interest in seeing additional support, whether that be in the form of personnel or human capital, or whether that be in the form of cameras, perimeter fencing. All of these things have been discussed. It really just depends on each of the individual schools. So at this time, I'll turn it over to staff and the Board of Trustees, and we can just have a conversation relative to whether or not what we describe as being responsive to the governor in terms of presence of law enforcement meets with your satisfaction.
Mr. Ochoa, go ahead.
Along with these recommendations, were there any recommendations to provide more money for some of these initiatives?
He is suggesting that they may be able to come up with right at $100 million for the entire state. How he plans to allocate that, I'm not sure. My guess would be that it may be enrollment driven, and that would give you some type of an allocation or a grant that then he would expect you to develop a plan. Or the other way around, develop a plan, apply for the monies. If your plan is sound, you get the monies.
Also, I know that we've already got good policies regarding some of our schools and police actions, activities that are protecting our schools, but how much would that increase the cost if we increase some of these initiatives?
I just saw where Round Rock Independent School District is thinking about moving from a security force like ours to a police force. And I want to say it will cost them in excess of $2 million the first year. And by a police force, it's simply doing what we already have, and that is having one sworn peace officer each and every one of the high schools or feeder patterns, and then the 2 additional at our DEAP site.
Have we presented this to our communities?
We haven't. We want to start with you. If the board would like us to go out the way we did last year in the fall and make this part of our community forum. Remember, we invited the community to come out, gave you an opportunity to speak. This could be one of the agenda items. I know it's important to people. This was in reaction to the Santa Fe shooting, but in general, it was in reaction to the increased number of shootings across the country.
Okay. Oh, one more.
That's fine.
I know that I've been involved with some schools, and one of the things that I'm very critical about is students wearing their IDs as also teachers. I think that enforcement has to be up some more because we have an open campus and a lot of people walk in and out, and even our students sometimes say that, they wear it down in their belt.
I think it's optional.
Or they have it in their pocket, and I think it's very important for us to, as we scan who's in the hallways and so that we know right away, hey, where's your ID? And have to stop them, because I think those are one of the actions that we really, really have to look at as far as our schools, to enforce that, police that, and make sure that everybody complies with wearing their IDs.
How do you feel, Robert and Dr. Kennedy, in terms of schools being consistent with ID badges and things like that?
Right now, all the middle schools, all the students do wear an ID. It is part of their dress code uniform and part of the student code of conduct as well.
Likewise at the high school. It's an enforcement, IDs at all times.
Well, I know
even
it's
enter the building without
on
an
our
ID.
policies, but how well is it enforced? I know that from my experience, they don't take it seriously, and then when the policy for not having your ID is not, let's say, is not effective in making them wear their IDs because they just think it's not serious.
Can I interrupt just a second? Because I'm going to agree with Mr. Ochoa. I mean, I think that we have good intentions, but as far as the daily grind of making sure kids have their IDs on, I don't think it happens consistently enough. And honestly, he's right about that. To me, this is one thing that we can do that's not going to cost us any more money. We're already financing this. We're already taking care. I mean, it's part of our policy. So to me, it's just kind of a simple step that would really, really help around the campuses. And I think that the kids, they're not a fan of wearing it. I think the teachers get tired of enforcing it, and I think we maybe need to have maybe, I don't know about stiffer penalties or what,
Well,
but
stiffer
something, some
Different
way.
penalties, but also reinforcing it enough to make them security awareness, because that's one of the other bullets, to make them aware about our surroundings. And not only for the students, but for our teachers too, because some of our teachers, you know, we have to be more aware that where everybody is responsible, the custodian, the bus drivers, everybody has the responsibility to protect our community. And I worked in another area where security was very important, and you couldn't slip by without your badge, or else if you didn't have your badge, of course, that's a different situation. You'd be reprimanded, but that's no.
I believe each campus is different, because, I mean, I know, because I've had to take several times my daughter and my son's IDs, or else they keep them in the office. So in my campuses, which is the middle school and the high school, they're very stringent on it. And I mean, that's my experience. I don't know about yours, but I think campuses are different.
Well, so
they're
basically, what we
very-
just need is consistency
Consistency.
throughout the district to make sure that all of them are doing that, because it is true. I mean, kids come onto the campus all the time, and they're not supposed to be there, and they just slide right in
With a group.
with the group, and then the next thing you know, you've got a problem. I mean, hopefully not, but, you know, that could be a problem. So I agree. We just need to make it consistent all the way across the board, and make sure that they understand that this is something that we're all going to be serious about from now on, because up until
I
this
think
point.
that's something, though, as we roll out what we're wanting to do with some of the initiatives in the upcoming year. I mean, we can be punitive, which sometimes works, sometimes doesn't.
I didn't want to be
No,
punitive.
no, I
I would
know.
just want to be consistent and tell them that this is an important area, that we monitor it often
Yeah.
enough to make sure that it's being complied with.
I
And I guess it's more on the monitoring side that I think we should come up with a plan where we
I
go.
agree with you on that, and I think it's something we can emphasize because
No,
of safety. This is
no,
why we're pushing this
Yeah.
the way we are. It's not just that we want to be punitive, but we want to
Yeah.
emphasize that safety is what is our main priority.
Yeah, punitive sometimes doesn't work. It's more pounding it into their head that it's important, it's important, it's important.
Well, and then now that we do have instances that we can tell them, you know, look, this is for safety, that we're not doing this for any other reason, maybe it will come across more positively for them.
Well, we
So-
have to build the culture for it. You know, we have to build the culture for it. We have a good area here in El Paso, and thank God we haven't had those kind of situations, but the culture itself has to be ingrained in it, that
Possibly starting with
security.
us. I know I'm not wearing my ID today. I could be wearing my ID in this building. I know I'm not. Maybe we can start.
Honestly, that's not a bad idea. Maybe we should make it where that, for our board meetings, for anything out in public, that we are wearing our IDs too. That's not a bad idea.
We are the examples.
Yeah.
I agree.
We are the examples, so.
I wanted to thank Dr. La Torre for doing this on such short notice. As soon as I saw the rollout, I'm like, can you do this? So thank you for bringing this information to the table. And I'm really excited about the initiatives for creating the environment for the officers. Maybe we can partner with some of the officers just to kind of do some roll-bys periodically during the day. And I'm excited also about what you all were thinking about doing, the implementation of the mental health training. I think it's important. It's a beast, but if we can at least get some some firsthand knowledge as to just some cues to pick up on. And I think Cruz has it right on, not noticing people without IDs or coming into school constantly wearing a hoodie that student doesn't belong there. There's certain things that we can probably pick up on, so thank you.
You're welcome, thank you.
Can I, go ahead. No, go ahead.
I just want to ask, what is the policy on locked doors in the classrooms? Because I know at Parkland, that's the policy, pretty much most of the teachers have their doors locked. Is that a district-wide thing? Is that a school-by-school decision?
I don't think it's a policy, I think it's a practice. And I think most teachers agree with you. I think sometimes the problem is the principal who wants to get access to the classroom when they want access to the classroom, and I think it irritates them that the door is locked and they can't walk in and see what's happening. But I think in terms of safety and security, that's a good practice in terms of as soon as the students come in and you take attendance and you get started, it's always a good idea to lock the door and then maybe assign a student or students to go to the door. Hopefully all the doors have, well, they don't, peepholes or a way to know who's outside the door. But that's what they typically do.
Yeah, because I was going to say, something that's also cost-effective, it's not going to cost us anything, is make that a district-wide policy. And as far as principals, administrators not having access, all of them have keys to all the rooms, don't they? So they should be able to access any room in the school very easily. And yes, it might take a couple of seconds to open a door, but if it creates safety without any extra cost to our district, I see it as a good policy. And actually, I was very impressed the times I've toured Parkland. I was going to go open a door, was one of the administrators was like, no, I have to open it first. And I thought that's a really good safety feature to have.
That and asking teachers, and I don't know if you've experienced this as a teacher, during passing period, to just step out of the classroom and stand by the door and monitor that part of the hallway. I think that's where they can observe, that's where students can have a conversation with them. They can notice if anything seems to be out of place, that type of thing.
And that's where you can also go back to Mr. Ochoa's idea of the IDs. Security can't be checking hundreds and hundreds of kids' IDs, but as teachers stand in the hallway, it's very simple to just say, where's your ID? Pull out your ID, wear your ID, things like that.
So we'll reach out to the El Paso Police Department once we come up with a plan and identify an area at all of our schools where they're welcome to come. It may be the faculty room where they can have access to a laptop or a computer. I think oftentimes law enforcement has their own computer now. Eat their lunch and spend time on our schools, be a presence, be visible, that type of thing.
Turn your microphone.
Sometimes when they're on patrol, they sometimes look for places, and that's why you'll see them sometimes at convenience stores and other places. We can be a welcoming place to kind of monitor activities in the neighborhood.
Also on the police officers, I'm not sure if I haven't read it clearly, but didn't the state just pass a rule that we have to make a connection with police officers and stuff like that? The districts have to work to teach students about police officer communication and stuff. I'm almost positive that.
Not that I'm aware of, but if you have that, go ahead and forward it to me and I'll look at it.
Okay, because I know something.
I don't know if having the SRO on campus and having them in and among the students and getting to know the students and regularly having conversations with students constitutes being compliant.
Okay.
Go ahead, Mr.
Kind of wrap this thing up.
Sauls.
I think I have all the trust in the administration, Dr. La Torre, and you and your
Thank you.
administrators. I think the time has come for a complete review, the thought of change of culture. We can't continue, not that we've done anything wrong or have not, but I think the time has come in this society that what we have done, maybe we need to give a very deep review where we can improve. I'll give you an example. Eastwood, for example, of course, before all these shootings have happened, they've got 2 doors on McRae, and I asked about the day we did the walkthrough, and to me, again, it's an open area where some individual can walk in and just have access to that area, where they paint and all that, artist.
The fine arts.
The fine arts. And so those things, I'm saying, those are things that we internally, Dr. La Torre, your administration, need to be thorough, review every campus, whether it's high school or elementary or middle school. The ID thing, it's a change of culture. Procedures, again, it's a change of culture. The one that I worry about, and I'm confused, and I will be until we have some kind of a plan, Dr. La Torre, is a cost, because oftentimes we get all these directives from the state, and they provide absolutely no funding. And hopefully in this case, we can create our own game plan and review and improve all the things that we need to do, and then put up a grant if it's a grant that we go after. But on that sense, I'm kind of leery. I still cannot, until I see the money from the state, I'll believe it.
Thank you, sir.
I was going to ask about that. So what you were saying about the law enforcement, the police officers that we already have on our campuses, is that what they're recommending, what we already have, or they want us to add more, or what's the deal with that?
Well, I think he's making a broad and general statement. He really has no idea. You know, districts are different. For example, if you're in the Socorro Independent School District, they have a police department. They have a real heavy presence of sworn peace officers, retired peace officers, and rely less on the security forces. We rely almost exclusively on the security forces to supervise our campuses and keep students safe, but we recognize that having the presence of law enforcement, at least one individual at each and every one of the high schools, who's also available to the middle schools and elementary schools, should he need to mobilize, is an added benefit. I think under his model, it would be a combination of one or the other, or both, to increase the presence of law enforcement. And he's leaving it to the local school district to decide, I'm sure based on resources, what they can and can't afford to increase the presence or the vigilance associated with law enforcement. I was going to mention, yeah, if they're going to come up with a bill to promote this, it would likely happen at the next legislative session. Some of the other things, the school marshals, I don't know that a school marshal would be any more effective than a police officer, maybe. But the other two are very doable. We'll find a way to reach out to law enforcement when we get a chance at the end of the month and we participate in the exercise at Ysleta High School. It may be a good time when we debrief to ask them whether or not they're interested in being our partner. Surveillance cameras are in place. One of the things that when folks ask why we don't have a police department, if you look at the data at the end of the year in terms of incidents, the critical incidents report that we're required to submit to the state, there isn't any difference between what we deal with every year and what those school districts that have a law enforcement department deal with. The only difference is they're spending millions and millions of dollars more than we are. And those millions of dollars are, I think, what make it possible for us to have the fine arts program that we have and the athletic programs that we have at the middle schools. And so it really, in my opinion, it comes down to choices. But if that data were ever to change and it was clear that having a law enforcement department would make our students and our faculty and staff safer, then I would be the first to say, let's take a look at doing that.
Mr. Rosales?
One thing that I would like to bring out in terms of adding law enforcement or trained law enforcement people, I was wondering if possibly we could reach out to the community and see how many retired police officers or federal officers that are retired here would be willing to create a force, if you will, that would...
A volunteer force?
That would volunteer. They're all trained. I don't know, this is something that comes to mind.
It's not a bad
Some
suggestion.
of these people don't have anything to do.
Not a bad suggestion.
I'm serious. Pardon me? No, they sometimes, not all of them, but sometimes they take a big honor in saying, I can contribute, and they're all trained.
The second strategy just speaks to mental health first aid training. And if there's one area that I'm not qualified to speak to, it's that. So one of the things we'll do is we'll work with Ms. Priest, Ms. Holman, our nursing coordinator, and then we'll look at local agencies to see whether or not that's something that can happen for all of our faculty and staff, what that training would look like. Would it be maybe a holiday exchange training? Would it be something that we would make mandatory? Could it be delivered online and everyone would be required to take the training online, much in the way that we offer other trainings, sexual harassment, some of the other trainings, and just ask everyone that is part of their contract at least go through it so that you can recognize the signs, the cues, and be able to help a child or anyone who appears to be in trouble or struggling.
Could we
Mr. Bustillos had a question first, and then I'll go back to you, Ms. Ysleta.
I think we need to look back at the 2 incidents in Florida and in Texas. The students were infiltrated already into the school. I think we really need to go back to what we were initially talking about back in our retreat last year, and social emotional counselors. We allow that money, we're to allow that money, we need to get the social emotional counselors that we need to have at the schools, so we're able to have help for the students, because those kids were already in. You know, we were talking about safety going in, those kids were already there. They needed the help, they needed a counselor to go to the house and see what was going on with their lifestyles and how they were living their life, and maybe we get that social emotional counselor to get involved with these kids, we deter them.
Go ahead.
I would agree with you, Mr. Bustillos, and maybe especially at the high school. I don't know if we have that type of counselor at the high school, but I think that would be something that would definitely be a good investment.
Oh, sorry, turn on your mic, please.
Did you guys, for the most part, hear me? I just, to reiterate, I agree with Mr. Bustillos. I think at the high school, that would definitely be, I know we have something similar like that at the middle schools, but I think definitely be an excellent investment at the high schools. I think we'd be able to avoid tragedies, many tragedies. I was also going to say maybe possibly for the training, maybe partnering with Emergence. I don't know if that's something that we can consider as well.
Yes, and that's who we're working with right now. We are in contact with them so that we can start setting up some training with our counselors through Emergence.
Thank you.
Okay. Strategy 3 speaks to how does one monitor the social media world, and what role, if any, can a school play in that? Do you hire dedicated staff to work 24 hours, 7 days a week to surf, and where would they begin? Or do we keep educating students on the dangers of social media and encouraging them? Basically, if you see something or someone makes a comment that gets your attention, remember, don't send it out to everybody else. Remember, we went through that process where we insist that they let someone at the school know, and then the school will be responsive to that. I think the app that our Pupil and Parent Services Department researched on, that we ultimately bought and implemented, has been helpful in identifying some problems early. Whether it has identified all of them or not, it's hard to tell. But I'm not even sure that when I saw him speaking, because I went back and saw the press conference again, I'm not sure he even really knew what he was talking about. I mean, he didn't have, you know, the job description or anything like that. He was, I think, just talking about everyone being vigilant, parents being a little bit more interested in what their children are doing and writing and posting on social media sites. That part of educating what happens in the household. I think he certainly expects us to continue and monitor what our children, our students, have access to at school and what they post. But I really don't know whether or not it would make any sense to dedicate someone to surf the net and all of these social media sites looking for, you know, threats or warning signs. Your thoughts?
I had one, and then I'll call on you. I'm thinking that, because I know generally speaking, parent education programs are kind of like not well attended, and people aren't really interested in doing them. But I wonder if we were able to mount some sort of campaign where that we could get the parents to participate in some sort of workshop, whatever we could think of to get it to work, or that we could bring this to their attention and also maybe try to get some commitment from them to help with these things. And something like that. Go ahead, Mr. Ochoa.
That was on the same line I thought that I was thinking, but I was also, again, we have to change the culture with our children and our parents, more with our kids. I was at the weekend and I saw a lot of stuff going on Twitter. I'm not a Twitter person, but they were trying to train me on that. And that thing is very powerful, but it's very, very easy to post things in that are inappropriate. Plus, we can't monitor that stuff. But we have to tell our students and everybody, including the parents, that they have to be aware of what's going on. If they know of something, they have to let somebody know. So I think maybe we should come up with some program that's like you say, promote it, and maybe send out a piece of paper every so often with where you can call in anonymously and let somebody know, because students don't want to turn somebody in, but if we can say this is important to everybody, come up with a slogan like if you know, you make the call or something like that, just something that we promote and then it starts with the grade levels, because they are the ones that eventually will become the high schoolers.
Well, actually, I'm thinking when you said that, it hit me. Why not start with the kindergarten? Why not start with the
Yeah.
pre-K, where that you start talking to parents very early on about these kinds of things? Because I think our mistake is we wait until they're in high school and then we're trying to rein it all in instead of working on it from the bottom up, maybe.
But you guys are ahead of the game. What Mr. Ochoa is suggesting is exactly what that app is for anonymous reports. Because what used to happen on a computer or a laptop at home now happens on a cell phone when the student, the teenager, is far from home. And so the parents can help us, I think, a little bit with what happens in the house. But as you saw in Austin, you pull your phone out and you can send or photograph yourself. You can do all kinds of things. So I think the biggest deterrent is adults having great relationships with the kids and kids feeling like they can tell them anything that makes them uncomfortable, that they can go to an adult and say, look, I'm not a snitch, but I'm really worried about, Joey Bananas. He's been saying, some things that I think are disturbing. Look what he posted. Let me show you on my phone. And then training those adults to not be dismissive and go, you know what, don't worry about that, because that's the worst thing that can happen. Take everything very seriously, be very responsive, know where to go. And that's on us to train all the faculty and staff so they yeah.
It's about school safety, but a child, you could prevent a suicide like that.
Yeah, for anything that
I think one of the things that, beyond all these ideas that we need to do is, our parents don't speak the same lingo as our students. If we can, I know that I have seen sheets where they provide counselors and teachers acronyms that students use commonly that most adults don't even know. And so maybe something when students register something like that in the parent packet, we can include something like that. These are commonly used acronyms by students. So if you see this in a text, you see this in their social media, this is something that you might be aware of, because a normal adult who doesn't text and speak the same way a teenager does might see a bunch of gibberish, but it might make a lot of sense to our students.
agreed. That's a great.
Another good idea that
Maybe
wouldn't
put on
cost a lot of
refrigerator
money
magnet or
either.
something like that
That would be
that they could put
good.
up.
Yeah,
With all the acronyms.
yeah.
And then strategy 4, I really think we're in a good place. I think having taken the time and invested the money to fly out to Maryland and meet with folks who are experts on how to be responsive during a crisis really allowed us to build a very strong team. The quarterly safety meetings, the campus safety committees, all the campuses have a safety committee, and we need to encourage them to be candid and frank relative to whether or not there are areas on their particular campus or areas where someone may be able to breach the campus. One of the things that I was talking to somebody during SLI, they own a company that provides attractive perimeter fencing around schools that's very difficult to breach. They'll be reaching out to us, I'm sure. There's a cost associated, but we really need to look at that anyway. The SAFE conference, and I think the big thing is drill, 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 so that at the very least, the adults take it seriously every time. I think what happens sometimes with the kids, once they've done the same drill 3 or 4 times, the tendency is to blow it off. And so you don't almost want to overdo it, because you want to keep that sense of urgency there in the event that, you know, the alarm goes off. Again, Mr. O'Neill and his team do a great job of that. He annoys the heck out of a lot of us when he has drills every month and you're in the middle of a meeting or you're in the middle of trying to finish something and he's got you walking out in 102 degrees to stand in the parking lot. But that's exactly what has to happen. And then we were all, I think, on the right page when we put those security vestibules on bond 2015 that allowed us to put those on at every one of our schools. What principals have started doing is they've started taking their own money and adding it to any doors that are located out on the perimeter of the campus. So we're seeing multiple magnetic locks on doors where teachers in that particular department in that building know that when the bell rings and the late bell rings, one of them are assigned to make sure to go and pull it, close it, lock it down, and now students, if they get there that late, they go back to the office. So if we can get more principals, and we'll talk to our principals during the retreat this week, and then again when we meet with them in August, to emphasize a lot of the things that you've all talked about, the badges, the consistency. The other thing that we've had to work very hard with our security people on is there's a tendency for them, you know, because their job alike, to congregate in the same area. And Mr. O'Neill and his team, JR, have insisted it's not going to help us to have all 4 of you standing around with the football players in the middle of the quad. And so now we've got locations where they're assigned and they're expected to be there. And if they're not there and we happen to visit, then we're going to have that conversation with them. It's a lot like when we used to go to the SAC to a football game and all the sheriffs that were hired to provide supervision are standing down by the goalpost, right? That can't happen. That can't happen. So if you give us maybe a little bit of time this summer, what we may want to do is come back and share some ideas with you in the fall. All right, well, thank you all.
Okay, if there's no other questions, we're going to move on now to discuss the agenda items as listed in the posted notice of regular meeting of Ysleta Independent School Board of Trustees for June 19th, 2018, and related recommended motions with the superintendent and executive cabinet, and receive responses to questions and/or requests for additional information through the superintendent in preparation for deliberation and action on said items at the June 19th, 2018 regular Board of Trustees meeting. So we will start with the consent items, and consent item number 1, which is the minutes from the workshop of May 7th. And then consent item number 2, the minutes from May 9th, and moving on to the monthly financial update as of April 2018. If you have questions, just stop me, please, okay? Number 4, budget amendments requiring board approval. I had a question on that one, and I don't have my computer with me, but, okay, and I guess that would be financial, right?
Yes, they're here with us.
I'm sorry?
Go ahead and ask the question, and if I can't answer it, I'll have
Well,
Mary Haney come
I
up.
think I can remember. On that one, there was a large increase in one of the items. They were moving, well, that probably won't help me. They were moving a lot of money over into one of the items, and I was just wondering what the difference was in the move. Yeah, if you don't mind. I'm sorry. It's all right. Thank you. You know what? I think I've got this wrong. I think that was another thing. No, it's okay. No, it's okay. I think it's actually in a further, I think it's further down the road. I'm sorry.
If it's not, and you get home and you find it,
Yeah, I'll just-
send me an
yeah.
email, and I'll have Mary
I will.
put a
Thank you.
response together for you and the rest of the board.
Let me, because I think maybe I can get this here real quick. I'm sorry, hang on just a second, and then I'll have my computer up and it will, because I made it post it on there. Okay, there we go. Okay, so that, you were right, that's not, it's further down the road on that one. But I'm going to go ahead and pull this up. Yeah. Okay. So, number 5, approval of revisions to YISD Student Code of Conduct and JAEP Code of Conduct for 2018-19 school year. Any questions on that one? So it's number 6, that's the one I remember, the property insurance. On that one, there's a big, we went up quite a bit on that one. Is there some reason why we had to go up on the property insurance so much?
The hail claim for $6.8 million.
And that causes us to have to pay more in the,
That's kind of when you have a car accident.
yeah, then they come and
They
they,
pay, but they come back with a little
you
higher
owe more
premium.
money. Okay, all right, that's,
Is that a form of a surcharge? Is that what they're coming out with?
I was going to ask you, so, you know, they were very responsive to the $6.5 million claim. And I didn't realize that when it's a natural disaster, that it still impacts your premium because the premium will go up moving forward.
That one does not sound correct.
Am I describing that right?
We only had one company that was willing to write.
Excuse me, sir, can we use the mic for Mary Hayes?
absolutely. Please, if you don't mind, if you'll come up to the, or, isn't it turned on at the computer up here?
We only had one company that was willing to underwrite us for the insurance, and that's the company that we currently have. No one else is writing claims in Texas because of the hail damage throughout the state right now.
So all of a sudden, it got more expensive.
That makes sense.
Well, it doesn't, but that's the way life is out here in the world.
In the insurance business.
Yeah, you know, it's, anyway, I've got my thoughts on that.
Okay. All right. Moving on to number 7, approval of award of cooperative requisitions for purchase of furniture, phase number 2. I don't really have a question on this one, but I think it's so cool that it's happening. Could we have somebody maybe talk about it for us so that we can hear what's happening for these campuses and all of that?
Ms. Chacon and Ms. O'Neill and I have been bringing in the principals, and they've been bringing staff members with them. And as you recall, they're allowed to get, for each grade level, there's certain furniture. Where they get the opportunity is to go in and select the style of desk they want, the color of the chairs, those type items, and they have been so excited. This time it'll be 5 schools. It'll be Edgemere, Dolphin Terrace, Desert Air, Mesa Vista, and Parkland Pre-K. But they have been so thrilled if you could sit in there and watch them get the opportunity to select the furniture and, you know, the color schemes they want, and they just agonize over it.
Yeah.
You know, because they don't want to make a mistake. They want to, you know, do
Right.
something special. But it's been going very, very well. We did 4 in the first phase. This is 5 for the second phase, so we're a little bit ahead. But it's been
Good.
very well received, and everybody's excited.
And we'll be continuing that on in phase 3 and however many phases to.
Yes, ma'am, there's 5 phases to the first part, and then we come back and get those other campuses in the second part. But yes, it's been very well received, very much appreciative by everyone.
I think it's pretty neat because who doesn't like to, you know, have a little redecoration in their life? So
Absolutely. It's like they're choosing furniture for their homes.
Yeah, yeah.
They've enjoyed the process.
That's so cool.
And the company is Meteor, and they bring in a consultant and they help them. So it's just not they're not looking through catalogs. The company rep does a presentation
Oh,
for them,
good.
gives them options, and it's been a great process.
And
I
so
know
they're
that.
able to pick even things that are great for their specific classrooms or needs or whatever that they're choosing.
Yes, ma'am. There was a standard that each one of them could choose from, and that's what they get to look at. Like I said, it's not the traditional desk, things have changed so much. The furniture's got to be mobile, that allows for them to collaborate and move around, and when you come this fall, you'll be able to see it. You'll see how excited they are.
Yeah, I think that's nice too, because it helps them to step into the 21st century and
Absolutely. We talk about the 4 Cs, the collaboration, creative thinking, critical thinking, communication. This furniture lends itself to that type of learning. And so, and our campuses principals have done a good job with 1960, 70 furniture. But this is even going to help them more. And if you go around and look at some of those desks,
Not kidding.
he's not. Retro chic.
but no, it's been a great process.
I think it's a
And
fabulous
so-
program, and I thank you for explaining it more.
No,
Thank
I
you.
hope I did it.
No, you did great. You
Mr.
did
Chairman,
great.
at one point, does this mean it's $2.499, $2.5 million, and then we allow the chief financial officer to have a buffer of additional $500,000?
That I don't know.
Explain that one to me, please.
No, we've already included $2 million in the budget for this, but we didn't know that the price was going to be $2.5 million, so we just need approval for the other $500,000
Okay.
to cover it.
Thank you.
What happened is the first go-around, it was 4 schools. This time, to make everything fit, we went to 5 schools to kind of speed it up a little bit. So we didn't tell finance, we figured they'd figure it out on their own.
When you ask for more money. Okay. All right, moving on. We're on consent item number 8, approval of award of YISD contract number 201-80219 with the College Board. Do we have any questions on this one? Okay. Number 9, approval of award of YISD contract number 201-80240 with the El Paso County Juvenile Board. Number 10, approval of award of YISD contract number 201-80211 with University of Texas at Austin.
I just had a quick question on this. I know that the contract is up to 2020, and that currently TAA is covering the cost per student. Have they agreed to cover the cost through 2020?
Ms. Crowell?
They're covering it for this one. We don't know about.
So then why do we want to make a contract all the way through 2020 if we don't know exactly how much it's going to run us after next year? If, let's say, TEA decides not to actually cover the cost all the way through 2020, do we really want to commit ourselves to 2 years?
With most of our contracts, there's a 30-day out.
Ms. Curl, can you go to the mic, please?
I actually think that that is a typo because I would have put it in there just for a year. So I'm not sure why it says 2020.
So you would agree that it would be better to do it through 2019 then?
The contract that I submitted would have said just for the 1 year.
Okay.
Through the 2018-19 school year.
Change it.
Good catch.
All right. Okay, number 10. Was that 10 we just did? It was, wasn't it? Okay. Number 11, approval of award of amendment number 2 to YISD contract number 98-850-428 with Region 19. Okay, consent item number 12, approval of award of amendment number 2 to YISD contract number 201-60472 with Texas Tech University Health Services Center, El Paso. Okay, moving on to policy action items, policy EIC academic achievement class ranking.
I have 2 points on this one.
Go ahead.
If we look at the purple paper that they gave us, under guidelines for AP and pre-AP, what was, I guess, striked from the original writing was including the College Board AP exam that is taken in order for the student to get the 10 points. Talking to Mr. Basuto, he said right now, because that is the current language, most of our students who take AP exams, 94% of them end up taking the actual AP test to be able to get their 10 points. If we remove that, what is to say that a student's not going to take the exam, and that percentage that is at 94% right now might drop to 74, 84%? And as a result of that, the whole purpose of an AP exam is to get college credit. If the student doesn't take the AP exam, what's the point of the class other than the rigor of it?
And just to add more information on that is this was derived through a committee of our AP teachers throughout the district. So that was in collaboration with Ms. Kerwal, and so they sat down and they made some adjustments. And really, the main reason why we had some adjustments here was to bring clarity in the second page, because we were gonna pass the on-ramps. We wanted to add the language for dual enrollment, and also just kind of fine-tune the language within each of the weighted points. But that is a philosophical point that we can go in the direction of what the board wants. In other words, the answer is this, the simple question is this: do we, for you to earn the 10 points for AP, you must challenge the test, or not? And that's really the philosophical question.
So as it is right now, you feel like the language encourages them to take the test?
Yes, you have to challenge the AP exam to get the 10 points, regardless of how you perform on the AP exam.
But what we're going to do, if you look at the red,
Right.
it would remove that.
Right. Well,
And in fact, as Mr. Basutra was telling me before, before I brought this up, I wanted to ask him a few questions. The vast majority of our students are low income, so the cost of the exam isn't really that much to them. I think it runs about $9 to take the exam. It's something that maybe we can consider in the future, covering maybe some of that cost if we want to as a board, because I know there's districts that cover the cost of AP exams for their students. We saw one, Garland ISD does it, but that's something we could consider in the future. But
Right.
as far as, I think, removing that from, as an incentive, why would a student then go take the exam if they're not going to be required to get it to get the 10 points?
well, I agree with that philosophy myself. How about the rest of you?
Why don't we pull the item and bring it back?
Let's pull it back,
And
pull
we'll play
the
with
item.
language, but since we're gonna, look at the policy again, and by the way, it is a board policy, so the fact that a committee came together and decided to present this language to you, it's understandable, but ultimately it's your policy. Then the question becomes, a lot of students, to get the 10 points, simply take the exam without any intention of passing the exam, and you can see that based on their pass rates, because you get the 10 points whether you score 3, 4, 5 or not. There are some boards across the country that insist that you get a 3, 4, 5 to get the weighted grade.
I think if you look at the next bullet point, they actually address that. They would actually get 5 extra points for getting a 3 or higher. So there is still an incentive to do well, because
To
now
get
you,
15 instead of 10,
instead of
right?
10. So that can make a huge difference. So I agree with you completely. Some students will just take it to get the 10 points.
I don't think the data would suggest that it's made a huge difference. I think most of the kids, if you look, and we'll get the number for you, and we'll make a distinction between those that get 10 and those that actually get 15. And the ones that usually get 15 are the ones that know that they're vying for that top 10 or that salutatorian, valedictorian role. But for the others, the 10 gets them to wear the off-color gown at graduation, indicating that they're top 10%. I think that guarantees them admission into a UT.
Yeah. And I think also, if we want to look at our CCMR, and I agree with you, the incentive of trying to get a 3 to get the 10 points, I mean, if we want to go to that level and put that rigor, I would be in favor of it. But if a student scores a 3 on an AP exam, they're considered college ready at that point. So it would hit our CCMR also by enforcing that kind of rule. And it would also encourage our teachers to make sure that we push our students to try to be capable of achieving a 3, because you need a 3 minimum to get college credit, and some schools it's a 4.
Maybe it can be one of the items at our retreat in July as something that we can work through and play with as a board.
And then the only other point I had that I had also brought up to Mr. Pasuto is on the dual enrollment on number 2 on the second page. Because that relates to on-ramps, I had the question of, does the student get the credit, the 10 points, even if they don't take the college credit for the class? For example, because a student can say, all right, I'm going to get the 10 points no matter what, and I don't have to take the TSI to get into on-ramps. I can simply be in the class, get my 75 in the class, might fail the college portion of it because I just don't care, and then I still get 10 points added to my grade. So it's the same kind of incentive. I think that in order to get the 10 points, the student must accept the college credit, which forces them to work hard enough to be able to make sure that they get the college credit. They don't care what they score as long as they pass, but they have to accept the college credit because it costs money for these TA classes, for these on-ramp classes. And if in the future we're deciding that we're going to pay for them after 2019, if TA decides they don't want to pay anymore for them, then I think there has to be an incentive. Not every kid can just jump in there to get the 10 points and goof off and say, well, I'll get the high school credit plus my 10 points, but I won't take the college credit. Because these classes are very expensive.
Mr. Basurto, is there a way when the committee gets together that possibly Mr.
Absolutely.
Codier could be included in the process? He has deep knowledge of all of these items. I think it'd be a good.
That's
Yeah,
a
it's not a
great idea.
And we can add that language, and that's not a problem.
Excellent.
Thank you.
So we'll pull it at the meeting tomorrow, or would you like it
I
pulled
think
in
just
advance?
go ahead and pull it now, because
We'll pull it now.
There's no-
We'll add language.
there's no reason to
Okay.
do that. Okay.
Excuse me, are we still leaving on the on-ramps, though? It's still on.
Yes, ma'am.
Okay, so that takes us to number 2, Resolution EIF, to consider alternative graduation requirements. Okay, then moving on to policy FNCA, student conduct dress code. I did have a question on this one, just to make sure. So, just for my own knowledge or whatever, and just to make sure. So the school will not be the sole vendor for uniforms according to this policy, right? That they will always have another choice, even if the school is selling uniforms.
That's correct. This addresses that Parkland
Right,
Middle School issue.
okay. Go ahead, Mr. Ochoa.
Thank you. I know those uniforms, you can buy them now from another vendor. The thing that I've seen is some principals still require the logo to be on it. And the logo is a little more,
Right. So do we have any change to that part?
There's language in the policies that indicates that the logo cannot be mandatory.
okay. Yeah, I just want to make sure because some parents are really scraping and trying to make ends meet. And if they have, to buy uniforms like that, it makes it hard. I'd rather them buy food than buy logos.
Okay. Moving on to the action items. Approve the internal audit plan for 2018 and 19, and we will be doing a workshop on that very soon. So unless you have something you just have to have answered now, we can wait on that one. Yes? Okay. Number 2, 2018 TASB delegate and alternate designation.
I just want to thank everybody for nominating me for that, and hopefully do you all proud. Thank you.
Absolutely. Number 3, approval of award of YISD solicitation, number bond 26 CSP football stadium display replacement. Okay. Number 4, approval of increase of YISD solicitation, number 217037 RFQ, professional roofing consultants services. Okay. Number 5, approval of award of phase number 3 solicitation, number bond 22 RFQ, BP 17 Bel Air High School Gymnasium addition and renovations. Number 6, ratification of award of change order number 1 to YISD contract number 201-80081 with AO General Contractor, Inc. Number 7, ratification of award of amendment number 1 to YISD contract number 201-30496 with PSRBB Architects, Inc. Number 8, approval of award of amendment number 6 to YISD contract number 201-60314 with Architecture. Okay, then we will go into closed session with the board's self-evaluation and summative evaluation of the internal auditor. And next will be action item for the summative evaluation of the district's internal auditor. Okay. All right. So now we're ready to go on to, do we need a health break? Are we doing okay? Maybe a short health break, a 10-minute one. I think so. Doing a workshop on that very soon, so unless you have something you just have to have answered now, I understand it, but I have to be in the session was this year, but I'm not sure when we need to yeah.
I know those uniforms are, you can buy now from someone, but I see it's supposed to require logo, and the logo is a little more.
Right, so we have any change to that?
A policy that indicates that the logo cannot be mandatory.
Okay, yeah, I just want to make sure because some parents are really scraping and trying to make ends meet, and if they have, you know, like, it's hard to have them.
Doing a workshop on that. I'm not sure when we will be doing a workshop on that very soon, so unless you have something you just have to have answered now, we can wait on that one. Yes? Okay. Number 2, 2018 TASB delegate and alternate designation.
I just want to thank everybody for nominating me for that, and hopefully do you all proud. Thank you.
Absolutely. Number 3, approval of award of YISD solicitation number bond 26 CSP football stadium display replacement. Okay. Number 4, approval of increase of YISD solicitation number 217037 RFQ professional roofing consultants services. Okay. Number 5, approval of award of Phase Number 3 solicitation, number bond 22 RFQ BP 17 Bel Air High School Gymnasium addition and renovations. Number 6, ratification of award of change order number 1 to YISD contract number 201-80081 with AO General Contractor, Inc. Number 7, ratification of award of amendment number 1 to YISD contract number 201-30496 with PSRBB Architects, Inc. Number 8, approval of award of amendment number 6 to YISD contract number 201-60314 with Architecture. Okay, then we will go into closed session with the board self-evaluation and summative evaluation of the internal auditor. And next will be action item for the summative evaluation of the district's internal auditor. Okay. All right. So now we're ready to go on to, do we need a health break? Are we doing okay? Maybe a short health break, a 10-minute one. I think so.
I think we're ready. Okay, we will reconvene at 7:20, and Ms. Champagne, you may begin.
Good evening, everybody. For President, Dr. Del Torre, everybody. I just distributed my own cheat sheet to every one of the board members because other ones I think you all know it's the big package like BP1 means it's for
Bond program.
the White High School and all these, right? BP02 is for Vista Hill, etc. These are for the bond updates. This is my own cheat sheet, and I think in the report you got, I only listed BP01, BP02, BP03, assuming everybody knows it. I apologize for that. So this, you can utilize it when you look at the bond audit report. So on last Friday's package, you have several things. And tonight, I'm going to start with the audit brief in the PowerPoint you got. So if you look at your vanilla packet tonight, you should have a vanilla packet. So on the package has the PowerPoint. Do we need to go through it page by page, or you're okay? If you have any questions or you don't have any question, then I'll move on to the audit plan. You have any question?
You're going to move on to what?
If we don't have a question on the PowerPoint, I'll move on to the audit memo, audit plan. Yes.
I had a question on the risk assessment process.
Which page?
Page 4.
Okay.
Okay. You say you have 9 risk factors applied to each budget of school department.
Sorry, it should be 8.
Yeah. Okay. That was one.
Sorry. Another mistake.
The other one was, okay, once you go through this risk assessment process, and I know that you provide us a lot of nice, or not nice, but very critical information that's very important. I just want to have a good feeling of after this risk assessment that you present us those high-risk items on your audit. And I'm just having a hard time finding those. If you could maybe possibly go through one as an example, and so I can get a better grasp of how your risk assessment works.
Yes. So if we have the Excel spreadsheet, the title is 1819 Audit Risk Assessment Summary.
Hold on.
It's on landscape. And it looks like this.
Yeah, I saw it a while ago.
It should be with today's package.
Okay.
Okay? So the first page is all the departments. And then the second page has middle block is high school, and then middle school, and then elementary school.
Yeah, okay.
Okay? That's second page. And then on third page, it should be ending of the middle school, elementary school. And in the bottom, I carry forward from last year's the audit approach, audit process. Okay? So now come back to page 1. Are you with me?
I'm with you.
Yes. So page 1, it has a department code, then department name, payroll. These are dollar amount. Payroll, professional and contract, dollar amount. Supplies and materials, dollar amount. Other operation expenses, and then the total, grand total, meaning the Department 55 has total budget for 18-19 is $925,674. Next column is non-salary, $235,729. Okay, the next column is salary percentage to each budget. So I take the salary, which is the first column, the payroll, divided by grand total, give you the percentage. The next column is the non-salary percentage to budget. So I have the non-salary 235,729 divided by 925, gives me 25%. Okay, then the percentage of the contract service to the grand total. Okay, and then the percentage of supplies, percentage of operation, then percentage of grant to overall budget. So the overall budget, you can see in page 3 on the grand total is 401,205K. Are you still with me?
No.
No? Okay, so if you look at the green column, right? The first green column is non-salary percentage to budget.
Where?
That I take 235,729 divided by 925,674.
Yeah, I understand all that.
Right.
The last part was at 2%.
Okay, so the 0.2% is I take the budget 925,674 divided by 401,205,000. The grand total is in page 3. Column grand total,
Where's grand total?
okay? Page 3.
Right.
Reflects percent of the total budget. So 920
To our
is
total
2%
budget? Of our total budget.
401, 206 million.
That's our total budget.
That's our total.
Oh, okay. All right.
Okay?
Okay.
Are you good? Okay.
I'm good.
So I have the number calculated, and then I have the risk factor 1, risk factor 2 to 8. And the risk factor, it's within the memo itself on page number 3 on the memo. On the memo itself, it's page 3. It has risk factor 1 is regulatory legal impact. 2 is district image, reputation, or market participant customer impact. Risk factor 3, changes in area management system or district processes, etc. Okay? So I use those, and with the historical data, then I apply to every single budget line, department or school. So the first one is Department 55, right? So risk factor is 5, risk factor 2 is 5, risk factor 3 is 4, risk factor 4 is 3, risk factor 5 is 5, risk factor 6 is 5, 7 is 3, 8 is 3. So then I take this total, each one of them, risk factor 1 is 5, 5 times 0.15, that's the weighted factor, plus 5, risk factor 2 is 5 times 0.05, plus risk factor 3, which is 4 times 0.1. I add them up, and it's 3.6. Okay? So are you with me? So you look at the last column, green, weighted points. All right? So then I take all the departments at once, department first, then I sort it by weighted points from the highest to lowest. That's why you see 3.6, 3.4, 3.15, 3.10, 3.05, 33333, right? So there are 5 has the same results, which is 3. So I need to use the second factor to rank them. So the second factor is non-salary percentage to budget. So you see the first green column, which is a non-salary percentage to budget. Okay? And even if I rank them, if you look at all the 3s, there are still some departments might have the same percentage. Then my third ranking is the percentage of grant total to overall total. So I have 3 levels of ranking. And that's how the results come up. Department 55, 62, 21 in the order of the weighted ranking. Okay, so then you see the next column is rank 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6, 7, 8. Page 1 is up to 46. Page 2, the department has 55 of them. Then I get the next block, which is all high school and special campuses. Then I do the same ranking process. So I get 1 to 12, all right? Then I do middle school. Middle school, same way of sorting it with the weighted point, then non-salary, then grand total to overall. So it comes out to be 1 to number 11, okay? Then I take all the elementary schools together from 1 to the same process, then from 1 to 38, right? Okay, so now coming to the determination of how many projects I can do and which one do I go by. All right, so since last year we proposed to do the new audit process gives everybody the by level rather than individual schools. So we did cash management for all the high schools. We didn't get to middle school, and we are doing SPABA. We finished part 1, but I have part 2 and part 3 to finish. So the cash management middle school will be higher priority than individual schools. And then ADA and PIM for all the high schools has a higher ranking. If you look at the ranking level on the right-hand side, those are the one we would like to take care of them instead of individual schools. Okay, that's on the page 3.
So by ranking them means that they're high priority, they're the highest risk?
Yes.
Okay.
Okay, so you look at page 1.
And then this A through F, what does that mean?
A is a audit project we want to do, and F is a follow-up audit. So, for example, for student system, this school year will be an audit and anticipating follow-up audit.
What's the F for again?
Follow-up.
Oh, follow-up.
Follow-up.
Okay.
Okay, some of those, for example, if you look at the 21, we have the middle school department that's audit. It's because this current year, I didn't get to it. So I think I should finish what I didn't finish before I bring in the new projects. That's why some of those ranking lower got picked. For example, like in the department on page 1, number 11 and number 12, it's a continuation from this year. Does it make sense to you all? Yes? No?
No,
Maybe
no.
so?
I just have a question on your risk factor.
Okay.
Okay. The first few, 1, 2, 3, 4, 4 are more subjective. That's unless you have criteria for, I'm sorry, that's that I want to look at you over here. Unless you have criteria for, like when you say little or no formal contracts, controls in place, what's little or no formal? Or no? Do you have set amounts for that? Or is that just something that you make a decision on based on your experience?
Based on my experience.
So there's no really criteria behind these?
Not for
For the first 1, 2,
1, 2, 3,
and 4.
4. That's true. It's my experience and a discussion with my staff, and also we look at general practice.
Okay.
For example, if we look at change in area management system or district processes, extensive changes in the area we consider, for example, we just have e-school system, right? So this system is very new. Everybody is learning, and the impact is all the students' records. So we apply this with extensive change in the area.
Well, let's look at the first one. Sorry,
Okay.
I'm just going to take some time. Regulatory and legal impact. And then the first one, description for rating 5 is extensive regulatory or legal risk.
Yes.
And the second one is moderate regulatory or legal risk. Can we, or can you provide some verbiage behind how you,
Okay,
instead of just making it suggestive, because I think it would make it a more, a better document that anybody could pick it up and understand without you being there, and understand how you came up with these rankings based on this risk assessments, risk factors. You understand?
No. Because, okay, I thought this is how I,
No, I'm talking about each one of these descriptions. I need words behind them.
it will be very long. I think it will be too long.
Well-
Basically, I would have to. for
Let's say
Yes.
you left right now, and God forbid, but that something happened to you, you wouldn't come back.
Yes.
We wouldn't know what to do with this.
Well, the one you hire should know what to do
No,
with this.
because you're subjective and you're based on your experience. What I want is something more concrete written down. That way we can look at this risk factors. She
Okay.
was based it on regulatory, extensive regulatory or legal risk. What were the boundaries?
Okay, I'll try.
Yeah.
I'll try to elaborate on it. You want me to elaborate on that?
I
All
want
right.
you to describe it in words.
Describe it, okay, I'll try.
Yeah, because I'm sorry, but I used to deal with these, and when we used to do assessments, and they used to provide us with subjective factors like this.
Mr.
and we
Ochoa,
asked them to
excuse me
put
for
it down.
interrupting, but what the paper, so I can follow up with what you're saying?
Oh,
Is it-
that's,
It's a memo,
that's the memo, memorandum,
the audit plan,
and that's on page 3.
like this one, looks like this one. Is this one?
And that's all I'm asking is that, I know you do good work and everything, but I just want
Oh, I see here, I got it.
something more concrete written
Sure.
for each of these things, because yours, you can look at something, and somebody else can look at the same thing
Yes.
and come up with two different
Of course,
risk ratings,
yes.
and that's in judging. So we have, what do you call it, a rubric or something like that?
That's a
Yeah.
good way to describe
That
it,
tells us, hey,
actually.
these are what you need to, these are the constraints for these categories.
Okay,
That way I know what is it that you're looking at.
Okay.
Because right now, to me, I don't know what extensive regulatory legal risk is. I have no concept of that.
okay.
The other thing, that's on those 1, 2, 3, 4, okay?
Okay,
The other factor was, okay, financial impact or no operating values, okay. These descriptions here are what the values that you show on column, the grand total.
say it again.
When you're using the risk factor, number 6,
Number 6, okay. The
You're-
financial impact, yes.
which, those dollar amounts, which column are you looking at?
That one would be in the one, you look at the grand total budget.
Okay, okay. I just want to make sure.
Yes.
So, again, if you could just put that in there. It's just looking at grand total budgets and,
Oh, okay, yes,
you
I
know,
would,
you
I
know,
would
I
do
just
that.
want pointers to how
Sure.
you're coming up with these risk factors.
Yes, 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 yes.
Okay. Also on the transactions, are they listed anywhere here?
No, no, transactions, usually we use the audit experience to look at.
The what?
We use audit experience, like we do from our audit history.
Yeah, but you put here more than 5,000 transactions. There should be a number somewhere.
Yes, yes, in our audit record, every time when we audit a department, we audit a school, we download the transaction
okay,
for
okay.
certain time periods.
Okay.
And that's where we go back to look at that.
Okay, all right.
Does that make sense? I can describe.
No, yeah, just on the ones that are subjective, I would like a little bit more boundaries description. That's
Sure.
that way, like I said, if somebody picks up this document, they can understand exactly what you're saying.
Okay.
And what you're describing.
Now, I have a quick question to everybody. Do you expect me to give you that by tomorrow night for vote?
No,
Probably, I don't think I can.
I think it's okay, just as long as it's timely after that.
How about-
How long do you want to,
what's timely?
that's what I was just asking. What do you
Can
think of as timely?
Can I give you in next week's package? Can I include in next week's package?
That sounds timely.
That sounds very
Doesn't it?
timely.
Sounds timely.
This week I can, because I would like to learn the new updates that the leadership has. Tomorrow morning, I think there's 2 hours of the accountability update, and then Wednesday has another accountability update I would like to learn. So I don't think I have time to get a good job done.
I think that next week's package, I mean, you're talking about Thursday, right?
Yeah, next Thursday, I would
Next Thursday,
get to
the
the
coming
package.
Thursday.
Yeah.
Not this week, the next week.
Next week, okay.
Yes.
And the reason I'm asking is that I just think you need to document it. I mean, it's a good plan, it's a good risk assessment, but we just need to make sure that we cover all the areas that need explanation, just in case, like I said, anybody can pick up this document and understand what
Right.
the excellent plan, risk assessment that she's put through here.
Okay.
Yes.
Okay?
Can I, real quick, I'm sorry, I skipped over number 3 in so we're kind of backtracking. It says, questions pending for internal audit pertaining to the monthly audit summary report pulled from the May 2018 workshop. So we have some people here who are ready to field questions if anybody has those. Do we have anything from that? No. I feel like that the BCs and things that went out kind
The
of
BC's covered a lot of
explained
that
it.
for me.
So
So any question I had on that before
Okay.
was explained.
how
in those
about
BCs.
everybody else? We're good? Okay. Okay, go ahead. Go ahead and continue.
I just had a quick question on risk factor number 4.
Yes.
What do you mean by quality of internal control system? Because you gave every single high school, middle school, and elementary, a 3. So are you saying that they don't have any kind of system documented to control, to make sure that they follow district practices? Because it says it's controls in place, but not formally documented.
Right.
What do you mean by that exactly?
Okay, so control in place but not formally documented. This we take from our audit experience, that it's not, it's specific to the school that when we audit and we look at the history to see if they, for example, let me give you one example. Say that they follow the district's credit recovery process, okay? But then when we look at the backup documentations, it's not fully documented.
So you're telling me that none of the schools from elementary all the way through high school have anything documented to prove?
No. Don't put it as as overall none. What we're looking at this is because when we audit, we sample it. So I'm not liberal to say we're perfect. This is just a risk assessment. It's one of the little factors we say we might find some non-compliance. And non-compliance includes from the board policy regulations to state regulations to federals, etc. So none of us is perfect.
No, I understand. When I look at sheets like this, my only problem is I always look at, is there patterns? And when you look at 5s all the way across, or 3s all the way across, or 4s all the way across, I
Yes.
question that because I cannot believe that every single school or every single department is exactly in the same position. Some departments have to be operating at a better level, some have to be operating at a lower level. And so I question numbers when it's across the board the exact same thing. That bothers me.
I understand that, and I thought about that too, but because the way we look at since we would like to take as many concise risk factors as possible, and so if you look at, for example, like the 4 you're asking, right? There's 1, 3, and 5. So the range is very broad, but if I grade it into 1 to 10, it would work better, but it's not time efficient to have the assessment in that level of detail. Does it make sense?
Champagne?
Yes.
Just to make an example, to me, in years past, a lot of schools, for example, cash, they receive the cash and they would not document. Sometimes, in certain cases, they wouldn't even deposit when they should. And so when you say, well, everybody's at 3, well, that's the average. Am I wrong?
Yes.
That they're average, even though they're not bad, because, you know, in the school world, there's so many things that the clerks have to do. And so we repeatedly, last year, I remember commenting about why is it that we don't get this thing done correctly? Well, there's a lot of pressures that go on at that time when the monies are received, as long as they're not lost, but it's something you have to constantly be working on. Did I help you on that one? No.
Did, and I understand, like, you cannot go department by department, school by school. That you don't have that kind of time or that kind of staff to be able to do that. I guess when I look at it, if I was a school and I say, well, how come I'm a 3 and everybody else is a 3, or how come I'm a 2 and everybody's a 2 and it just looks like random numbers get thrown on there sometimes. And I guess I would question it if I was the head of that school, like, why am I exactly the same as this other school and every other school?
And I think that's why we have 8 of them rather than just one factor.
Yeah.
So one of the factors might look like same or similar, but when you consider 7 or 8 of them, it would be more.
Well, I was just looking at the schools and risk factor 1, 2, 4, 6, 8. That's over half of your risk factors are pretty much almost exactly
Similar,
the same
yes.
numbers.
It's very similar.
That's why I was looking at it.
Yeah, yes, of course. It's when I was doing this, I thought about that too, and I checked, and it comes out to be.
Yeah, no, I understand. I guess, like I said, it was just my question as to why they were all so similar.
You know, that now I can see I understand where Cordier is coming from. In the financial impact, if we take that one, just as the example, so we're saying that in the average of our schools overall have the potential for losing 100,000 to 500,000. Is this a year or?
That again? Which one? Sorry.
If we just take the financial impact number 6, only because that was the first example, and are we saying that because a 3 rating is saying that the financial impact of a normal operating budget values potential losses in revenue, federal, state, local funding, potential extra cost. If we have a weighted average of many of the schools of a 3, then that's potential loss of 100 to 500,000. Is that a year? Is that?
Oh, no. What we're saying, this is say that financial impact of normal operation budget value, potential loss in revenue, etc. What we're trying to say is, if we have the budget, it's over $1 million. It has a higher risk compared to the one has only $100,000. In terms of having some deviations and to cost that the district might have to return the money, or, for example, we have ADA. If a school is bigger, from a budget standpoint, the student number is more. And the student number more, if we make a mistake in the ADA recording or something, then we have higher risk of.
So it's not negative then? It's not negative if you're at a higher
No,
risk? It
not
just
yet,
means
not
that
yet.
You're more, like, we need to make them more of a priority.
I think what she's saying is that if your budget is $1 million,
Yeah.
and your budget is, what was it, the other one?
$100,000.
There's a higher risk of,
$1 million.
of the million, that's why she gives it a
get it.
5. So those are not subjective, those are actual numbers.
Yeah.
But that's the, yeah.
Some of
and-
the other ones are more subjective, yeah.
Yeah, the other
Yes.
ones are subjective, and that's why I want her to write some criteria for that, so we could understand exactly what her train of thought is for those.
Yeah, and because the leadership is really a management of art, and it's very difficult to have only the solid numbers, because the management could impact the results. Okay, so are we okay with the risk assessment process? And then any suggestions, I am very welcome to receive or listen to it, and then we can make improvements on the process. Okay, so then in today's package, I also included a audit activity list that looks like this, that I gave you the list. And I had some bright pink color is because after I gave you the last week's package, I realized, for example, the 3.13 and 3.14, Superintendent Office and Board Trustees, we will do in one audit project rather than two. So I combined them. So it should be 3.13, 3.13. But if you look at your last Friday's package, will be 3.13, 3.14. That make sense? Mm-hmm. And on the right-hand side, I also adjust the budget of the hours a little bit. So the pink, just to show you that since Friday package and today's, I have made the update. And you can see many of the projects here are carried forward from the current year to next year, because this year I am struggling with trainings and learning, and it's probably the most unproductive year. But however, we did manage to have 51 projects going and accomplish the major ones. So, and then the next one you see in your package are the two memos that I have been sending to you. One is the annual internal audit survey. Nothing was changed other than I just fixed the department name, because in the district record, it's internal audit office, not internal audit department. So I thought we should make the correction. So if you all are okay, once you adopt the new audit plan, then we will use the correct name. And then the next one, it's a memo, just a reminder from prior years. This summarizes the audit process. The audit process, and again, some correction on the audit names. And then also I make it more practical, because we used to, in the paper, to say that whenever there is a corrective action plan, the department head or the principal would go through the associate superintendent and send to me and CC superintendent. I think it sounds good, but I don't think it's practical and it's not realistic. So I corrected to match the real practice. The real practice, I work with the department, I work with the principal on all the findings and the corrections, and they inform their supervising associate superintendent. And then once I work out all the details, then I issue the corrective action plan audit report that to 8 of you together, and then CC the supervising associate and the audit department or the audit campus. So this is just to reflect the actual practice. So that's about it for today. Is there any more questions?
I was going to ask if there's anything that comes up and you'd like us to track it down tomorrow. Shoot us an email, and I will find you.
I'm sorry?
Ms.
What did you say?
Austin, did you
I
need
just
to
want to say thank you, Ms. Champagne. I think you're doing a fabulous job. We just need to
Well, thank you.
work a lot closer.
And on the project package, you do have the project tracking and the hotline summary tracking for you to review. So tomorrow, do I need to change anything, or can I just make it the audit proposal final so Monica can post it? No, we posted already. We just need to.
Correct, we already posted, so it's just going up for adoption or approval.
Okay, so do I, and once you voted, then I will fix the wording to final, no draft? So I don't need to do anything tonight, right?
I don't think there's anything else to do with it.
Okay, so after tomorrow, then we'll do. Okay.
Go ahead, Ms. Austin.
Yes, so your board policies require you to approve the audit plan. So shall we, are you interested in approving it as is tomorrow? And then if she provides supplementary information, you can adopt that perhaps in your next meeting in August or something like that, and it'll just get tacked onto the plan?
I think it works.
Okay.
I think the only thing we're adding is just the additional
An
description.
amendment, is that what it's called?
Or we can just supplement it or amend it in
Okay.
August, and yet you want the information before August, right?
Right. It's not anything to change, it's just more additional information to be provided. Right?
So it will be the attachment.
All right. Or we can change the motion tomorrow to say with attachment explaining
Risk assessment factors.
risk assessment factors.
Yeah, explaining the criteria behind those.
And then we don't have to bring it back to the board. If you-
Okay.
if you're
That
all right
sounds
with
like the best idea right there.
Is that all right?
Yep.
Okay.
Thank you all.
Thank you. If there's no other discussion, may I have a motion to adjourn? Oh, nobody heard, did they? We need a motion to adjourn.
These seconds.
Okay. Madam President, I move to adjourn.
Thank you.
We went through that quick.